Hello and welcome to another episode of the ZTV Sports Report, your home for all things Akron Zips athletics. On today's episode, we're continuing our coverage of both basketball teams and the track and field team, including taking looks at both home basketball matchups against rival Kent State. As always, I'm Max Aracey.
I'm Zach Leininger.
And this is the ZTV Sports Report. On February 1st, the women's basketball team squared off against Kent State, followed a few games later by a showdown against the number one team in the MAC, Ball State. Let's take it over to Katie and see how they were able to do in both of these games.
Hi everyone, it's Katie Balmer here, and today we're going to dive into Zips women's basketball and see how they did in their recent games. In a rivalry showdown that went down to the end, Kent State escaped with a 57-55 win against the Akron Zips. It was clear from the opening tip that there would be no easy baskets for either side, as two of the top defenses in the MAC were up against each other. The defense led the way for the Zips in the first half by limiting the Flashes to only 28% shooting. After the teams traded runs throughout the opening half, Akron headed into the locker room trailing the Flashes 24-23. The Zips fought their way back from the 13-point deficit early in the fourth quarter, cutting the margin down to 2 in the final minutes. Sophomore Reagan Bass posted a double-double to lead the Zips, finishing with 15 points and 13 rebounds. Senior Molly Neitzel also recorded a double-double with 12 points and 11 rebounds, while junior Alexis Stewart scored 12 points for the Zips. Akron out-rebounded the Golden Flashes 43-30, including 32-21 on the defensive glass. Hannah Young led Kent with 16 points, and Katie Shoemate contributed 11 in the win. In the next game, the Zips welcomed another MAC rival to the jar, hosting Ball State. The Zips fell short of the Cardinals 61-56 after a hard defensive battle. Senior Dominic Camp led the Zips with 13 points and 5 assists, while sophomore Reagan Bass recorded her 6th double-double of the season with 10 points and 10 rebounds, along with senior Molly Neitzel, who added 12 for Akron. The Zips took an early 13-7 lead midway through the first quarter before the Cardinals fought their way back to gather a 29-27 lead before entering the locker room. Defensive pressure from both sides created turnovers throughout the opening half, with the Zips forcing 8 Ball State turnovers and limiting one of MAC's top scoring offenses to only 29 points in the first 20 minutes. Akron out-rebounded the Cardinals 22-14 in the half and 40-29 for the game, limiting the visitors to just 2 offensive rebounds and 0 second chance points before the break. Anna Clefane topped Ball State with 29 points, while Marie Kiefer added 10 for the visitors. This is Katie with the ZTV Sports Report. Go Zips.
That's not what I want to see. Not at all. Those are two games that they had in the palm of their hands, and they just couldn't close out either one. The Kent State one is especially frustrating to me because if you're able to limit Kent State to 30% field goal shooting throughout the entire game, there is no reason that you should not win. You cannot hold them to 30% and not win. So my big takeaway from that is it might be an obvious take, but their defense is where it needs to be. They're getting the stops, they're holding the team, or they're holding the opposing team, their key players, good game plan, but they're not hitting shots. And if you're not hitting shots, it doesn't matter if you're playing the best defense in the world, you're not going to win. Tell me about this Kent State game.
Yeah, it seemed like a really frustrating game to me because, like you said, they were playing really good defense, limiting them to some low percentages shooting wise. Mm-hmm. But it was just that. Thinking back on that game, it was just frustrating with some of the calls that it seemed like every time Kent drove in, it seemed like we were pretty straight up and down, as far as contesting the shot. Mm-hmm. And the refs were still, they were blowing some questionable calls that it gave Kent a lot of chances at the free throw line, and still a lot of free points.
And at the end of the day, it's a 2-point game. So you think one of those fouls aren't called, and that's a tie game right there, and it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like it's hard pinning the blame on the refs because on one hand, like, yes, that is a hindrance, that is a factor. But then at the same time, it's like, you still got to win. At a certain point, I feel like the circumstances don't matter, and the only thing that matters is the result.
Yeah.
But you made a very valid point in saying that there were some questionable calls that definitely went against us.
And we were just taking, we were, a lot of our possessions were just too quick. We'd come down the court and we were shooting the ball within a couple seconds, and we didn't utilize the shot clock enough, or it didn't feel like we didn't really set up a play.
Yeah, 100%. It feels like there are times when they're just passing for the sake of passing.
Yeah.
They'll have 3 or 4 players lined up along the perimeter, and I mean, I swear they're just going back and forth and back and forth, and then you see, depending on who the other team is, of course, but sometimes you'll see them coming out with just nasty ball movement. Because a lot of teams in the MAC, I can't lie, have really good ball movement. Bowling Green, I remember, did. So it's just hard seeing other teams play like that, and then the Zips come up the court and just kind of handing it to each other. So, and I mean, granted, you're always going to have bad stretches in games and in a season, but this offense has got to get sorted out. And you look at the Ball State game, same story, Zach. Same exact story. Yeah. They held Ball State to 61 points, 37% shooting, which obviously is a little better. Or that's for the Zips, excuse me. The Ball State shot 38%, so about the same. But that's another game where they're keeping their opponent under 40% shooting, and they're not winning. Yeah. And I mean, dude, they held Ball State to 14% from 3 of 21 from beyond the arc. You have to win those games.
And that Ball State game, it might have been even more frustrating because with the Kent game, Kent's just like a seed higher in the MAC, but Ball State being like the best. Well, actually, I think looking at it,
they are the single best team in the MAC.
Yeah. And they're right up there with Bowling Green, but it's like just going head to head with one of the best teams in the MAC. You want to be able to come away with the win, and pretty much all game it was neck and neck. The Zips got out to early lead, I believe, at the beginning, and they had them right there where they wanted them. And I think just going into the second half, something seemed to change, and we just started giving them more open looks. And
couldn't keep up.
Ball State, like every player on that team can shoot pretty much, and giving even one player a chance an open shot was just it was killing us.
And you think you're leaving that one player open, so you got to adjust your game plan, maybe double mark them, not double mark them, but just pay more attention to him, and that's opening the door for another shooter to come in. So, tough situation. In Ball State, they are first in the MAC, 12-1 in conference, 22-4 overall with a 10-game win streak. So that win would have been huge, not just in terms of, help in the standings, but think of how big of a motivator that would be.
A lot of confidence.
That would
building
so
right
much
there.
confidence would come back with that win. So. Unfortunately, that it can't be said. I mean, it's frustrating because we've talked. We know how good this team is. It's just I feel like they're kind of slogging through right now.
Yeah.
They're not playing to win. I feel like they're playing to play more so than anything else.
And a lot of these wins, especially the next few games down the stretch, they're pretty much must-wins as far as getting into tournament play and stuff.
You want to keep a solid hold on a decent seed in the MAC. You've got to start winning, especially with how much they've been losing.
Especially they're playing some good teams.
So I think we can wrap up this conversation there. Real quick, I just want to shout out Molly Neitzel. She's playing like an absolute stud lately, like straight superstar. Just wanted to shout her out because, in this stretch of games, some players have maybe not lived up to what they're capable of. And it's just, I guess it's nice to know that regardless of how the rest of the team is playing, you've got that one player that is just in her bag right now.
Absolutely.
So, they're capable of it. We know they can make some waves in the MAC, and they got to put it together. They got to make the shots fall, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Yeah. So we're going to take it over to our first commercial break, but when we come back, we'll jump into the men's basketball team. Stay tuned.
You're watching ZTV.
Welcome back. Much like the women's team, the men recently squared off against Kent State, followed by another important game against the Toledo Rockets. Here's Megan, who takes a look at both of those games.
Hi everyone, this is Megan with the ZTV Sports Report, and today we will be talking about the men's basketball team. We are covering their past 2 games today, so let's see how they are doing. In the first game, the Zips played at home against their rival Kent State. The Zips got off to a hot start and never looked back. By the end of the first half, Akron was already up by 5 points, and the Zips were able to carry this momentum into the rest of the game, allowing them to win 67-55. When talking about the Zips, we have to start with Xavier Castaneda, who scored 24 points off of 5 3-pointers while also getting 3 rebounds. Enrique Freeman had a great game as well, scoring 19 points while grabbing a team-high 17 rebounds and tacking on 3 assists. Looking at the team as a whole, they connected on 9 3-pointers, scoring 40% of the ones they attempted. Looking at Kent State's team, Sincere Carey played well, scoring 15 points with 5 rebounds and 3 assists. Jalen Solinger also played well and contributed 13 points of his own off of 3 3-pointers. Rounding out their team, Malik Jacobs scored 12 points along with 3 rebounds and 3 assists. With this win, the Zips were able to push themselves into first place in the MAC. Looking at their next game, the Zips were back at home squaring off against Toledo. Toledo got off to a hot start this game, scoring 37 points in the first half, leading by 5 at the break. This lead gave the Rockets the fuel they needed to score even more the second half, leading them to win 84-74. For Toledo, Cedric Milner Jr. played the best, scoring 20 points while tacking on 9 rebounds and 3 assists. Dante Maddox Jr. also contributed 19 points off of 3 3-pointers while adding on 8 rebounds and 2 assists. Furthermore, Ray J. Dennis got 18 points of his own, grabbed 6 rebounds, and led the team with 5 assists. As a team, the Rockets shot 50% from 3, demoralizing the Zips. Speaking of the Zips, Xavier Castaneda scored 23 points with 4 rebounds and 1 assist. In addition, Trendon Hankerson added 20 points of his own with 6 3-pointers while also getting 2 rebounds. Then came Enrique Freeman, who led the team with 12 rebounds and also scored 10 points. The Zips as a whole connected on 34% of their threes, but were still unable to come away with the win. As a result, the Zips now find themselves in a 3-way tie for first alongside Kent State and Toledo. Moving forward, the Zips are looking to get back in the win column as they make their way to March Madness. This has been Megan with the ZTV Sports Report. Go Zips!
Thank you, Megan. Zach, I want to tell you something. Let me tell you something, man. Nothing on the planet feels better and just more right than Akron whooping Kent State.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just destiny.
Yeah.
It's meant to happen.
Yeah.
And it did happen.
Especially with the packed arena like they had there.
Man, that was the best crowd I've seen in the Jar Man, that might have been the best crowd I've seen in the Jar ever. It was not only just packed, it was so packed that people were standing because there weren't even seats. They let too many people in.
I want to say sellout crowd, but even more than sold out.
It was more than a sellout crowd. They oversold, and for very good reason. Because Akron showed up, biggest game of the season up to that point. They played zip basketball, they banged out, they balled out, and they took the dub.
Yeah, they did not disappoint.
Tell me about this game, Zach.
So, thinking back at this game, they just got off to a really hot start. I think the first possession we got a alley-oop to Enrique, and it just seemed to really lift the arena. Got the energy flowing, and we just really played off that the whole game. It seemed like. Yeah,
that home crowd momentum is huge. Man, talking about that boy Enrique, all right. This is how you know your team is locked in, when Enrique is splashing corner threes. If Enrique is splashing corner threes, you know you are locked in. And that's what he was doing, man. It was such an amazing game. Kent was coming in trying to get the revenge for the MAC championship last year. Another beatdown that we handed Kent. So they came back trying to kind of right their ship again, and they failed.
Yeah, they were trying to compete with us, but it seemed like we got off. Our first 4 baskets went in, and I think Kent was just trying to answer back, and they were putting up some quick shots.
Yeah, it's hard to play from behind like that. So, and they did get a little close at one point in the second half. I don't remember what Kent got it down to, maybe like 5 or 6,
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, and that was enough to keep the game tense and very exciting. And it didn't feel like it was over yet, but then the Zips just ran back away with it. They just ran away with it, and it's what I like to see, man. There's no other way to put that. It's what I like to see.
It was definitely a confidence builder and a much-needed win for sure.
Oh yeah, you lose that game, you come out and lay an egg, dude. That, unless you bounce back the very next game, that could derail your season.
Yeah,
could derail your season. So it's such a great sign for this team that in their biggest pressure game, they play their best basketball, and I think it's a very good sign for the MAC tournament moving forward. But I mean, what a game, man! I think we could keep talking about it for a while.
Oh yeah.
I want to move over to the Toledo game. Another huge matchup. If you look at the MAC standings today, Kent State is 1, Toledo is 2. So huge games. And with Toledo, what I look at that game and I see the opposite problem that the women's team is having. The men's team in that game, they were scoring like they needed to score. The offense was working. They dropped 46 points in the second half. But guess what they gave up in the second half? 47. So
it's just
that's all I need to say, man.
Yeah.
Because if you're, let's see, what did Toledo have that whole game? If I can find my paper, which I probably can't. What did Toledo have? 84.
Yeah, 84 in that one.
The Zips 74 is a solid point total.
Yeah.
And you're still losing by double digits.
Yeah. I mean, it was just tough because I remember going to this game. Toledo was averaging 85 coming into this game, and
and that is a good point.
They just about hit their mark too.
It's a powerhouse offense, so that does need to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, but it still seemed like early on they weren't going to hit that total because we were shutting them down.
Yeah.
And
the first half was definitely more defensive than the second half. In the second half, the scoring just went off the rails.
we were giving up shots there, and it seemed like with we had Milner here. He had 20 in that game. Maddox was setting up some ISOs against us and just absolutely dropping daggers on us. Ray J. Dennis, who was in my opinion pretty much their superstar guy. He had 18 on it, which is
If you're in a college basketball game, if you're letting 3 opposing players score borderline 20 points, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
You're not going to win. And Toledo's an amazing team. We need to give them the credit that they deserve. They're very, very good. But it's frustrating. You think, man, they could have followed up that big Kent win with an almost just as big win, and it would. The sky's the limit from that point.
Yeah.
But
it's just a game they gave away. Because again, looking at the standings, like if they won that game, because now dropping into 4th behind Ball State, just that win there, puts them in 3rd. And I think actually. Yeah, would have gave them the 2nd place over Toledo.
Yeah,
and
so it's tough, man.
Another must-win they needed.
It's tough, yeah, and kind of looking at the team as a whole, I think it's pretty similar to the previous points we mentioned. Castaneda and Freeman balling out. Castaneda's averaging over 20, which could be wrong. I don't know if I've seen that on the men's basketball team in a very long time. I know Jordan Dawson had 20 plus last season for the women, but between him and Enrique, 2 superstars.
Yeah.
Past that, they need the role players to step up a little bit more, and you need more consistent production.
Yeah.
They've got solid role players, but I feel like we're at the point where if either Freeman or Castaneda has a down night, the other one needs to have a career night to win.
Yeah.
So, I think similar boat to the women's team. This team is capable. They can make the run. They showed that against Kent State. They got to just keep proving it.
Yeah.
Keep rising to the pressure. Keep winning the big games.
Yeah. Keep playing Zips basketball.
Keep playing Zips basketball. So hopefully they do that.
Yeah.
I think they will, though.
Yeah.
We're going to take it into our second commercial break now before concluding the show with some coverage on track and field. Stay tuned.
You're watching ZTV.
Welcome back. To conclude the show, we're going to take it over to Zach and see how the track and field team did in the recent Al Campbell Invitational. Here's that coverage.
Hello everybody, Zach Leininger here, and today we're going to take a look at the indoor track team and see how they did in the recent Al Campbell Invitational. Overall, the Zips had a great day, recording 19 top 3 performances, including 4 first place finishes. Speaking of those performances, let's see exactly how they came to be. Caleb Mabins set the tone early, grabbing a second-place finish in the men's long jump with a career-best leap of 23.5 feet. Hunter Gerritsen kept things rolling for the Zips in the pole vault with a career-best mark of 18.2 feet, earning himself a first-place finish in the meet, as well as the third-highest vault in indoor program history. Moving on to the men's weight throw, we had Milton Wilson, who captured the second first-place finish of the day for the Zips with an insane career-best throw of 69 feet. Looking into the running events, this is where the Zips did their most damage. Grace Henderson got things rolling in the women's mile, coming in at 5 minutes and 15 seconds, earning herself a second-place finish. Following Henderson's performance, Adaze Wokiki and Jane Celestine competed in the women's 60-meter hurdles. Wokiki brought home the third first-place finish of the day for the Zips, with Celestine coming in just behind her, finishing in third place. Shortly after that, Benjamin Hudak fought hard in the men's 400-meter dash, coming in second place off a career-best 49.54 seconds. Just when you thought the Zips were done, Anna Allstott kept things going with her career-best time of 7.87 seconds in the women's 60-meter dash, resulting in a third-place finish. Sisters Maddie and McKenna Heimlich lit up the 800-meter dash, with McKenna winning the fourth event for the Zips in a time of 2 minutes and 12 seconds, while Maddie came away with a third-place finish in a time of 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Jimmy Harkleroad added on a great performance in the men's 200-meter dash, posting a career-best time of 21.71 seconds, good enough for third place. In the women's 3,000 meters, Rebecca Harden garnered a second-place finish with a career-best time of 10 minutes and 1 second. Rounding out the Zips performance, Danielle Honecker added a career-best effort of 17 minutes and 56 seconds to place second in the women's 5,000 meters. In a meet full of 12 teams, the Zips put on a great performance that will set them up nicely for the upcoming MAC championship as they look to put a cap on another amazing indoor season. As always, I'm Zach Leininger with the ZTV Sports Report. Go Zips.
Well, thank you, Zach. And considering that I know basically nothing about track and field, why don't you break this down for me?
It's just looking at this meet, it was a little different than the last time we viewed this track team, because last time it was just starting out the season, just a dual meet against Kent State. It's only 2 teams. This one, became with an invitational. They welcomed in a lot more competition. It went from 2 teams to 12 teams this time.
Can I ask you something? Is that more pressure or less?
It can be a little of both. It depends on the competition you're facing.
I think a Kent State meet that would be pretty tense.
Yeah, but I guess it's just thinking on the competition you're facing. That if you know who you're running up against, it can kind of ease your mind, because if you can figure out people you can beat, and then it can be a little bit more beneficial, because the more people you have to run against, the more competition you have. Generally, the better your times are, because it makes you compete more. It keeps you more in the moment,
definitely,
and more engaged. But with this, it's like, with 12 teams, there was just a lot more involved, and we still seem to just come out here and we competed the way I feel we always do. It wasn't really. We didn't have like any specific events. I know we had a couple finishes here, won the 800 in the women's. But overall, there was 19 top 3 finishes, so they were definitely there, representing the team well, especially holding it at home.
Yeah.
And like I said, it just seems like we represented well for the team.
That's good. You think, granted, this probably is something that goes for any sport, but the more meets they're going to do, the more they're going to mesh. I mean, granted, that's probably more individual events, but the individual players are going to find that confidence. All those people with top 3 finishes, they're going to come in next meet looking for top 2 and top 1.
Right.
So
it's like every sport, with football, basketball, it's really a reps thing.
Yeah.
It's like, the more, I guess in this, it's not really snaps or plays, it's just races really. Like the more you just get on the track and the more you compete, the more it's able to, once you're able to get on a string of like good performances, it helps you. It helps you mentally just to lock in and
momentum. Yeah,
and once you're aware of what you're capable of, then it's just a matter of building on that. And this season seems to be going by pretty fast. With the MAC championships already next weekend, so it'll be wrapping up quick. Indoor track doesn't last very long, so.
Well,
but that just means we're getting a little quicker into the outdoor season. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And hopefully they can make some waves
Yeah.
in this MAC championship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that about does it for this episode of the ZTV Sports Report. As always, you can follow us on social media at ZTV Sports on Instagram and Twitter, and at ZTV Sports Report on YouTube. I'm Max Saracey.
I'm Zach Leininger.
Thank you for watching, and go Zips.
This program was produced by ZTV at the University of Akron. Do you want to gain experience in video production, professional social media, or working with real clients? Visit the UA School of Communications online or follow us on social media to learn more. ZTV, make media, make a difference.